COVID-19 has tested our hope and faith as individuals, families, and the country at large. Besides destroying many aspects of our lives, the novel coronavirus has also affected our human rights in many ways. You and the Law, the COVID edition, is a 30-minute weekly television program that focuses on the impact of COVID-19 on human rights in Uganda. The program engages experts to explain the importance of rights-based approaches to the success of any public health response to ensure the respect, protection, and fulfillment of human rights amidst the challenges presented by COVID-19. You and the Law, the television program, brought to you by Legal Hub Uganda, taking the law to the last mile in proud association with I4C Africa Hub and House of Talent Television.
There's a very famous case to lawyers. Many lawyers know this case, the case of Hyde versus Hyde.
Yeah.
You know, they say marriage is one man, one woman, to the exclusion of others.
Yeah.
So that means that if you choose to go today before a priest in a church, a reverend, a pastor, whoever, whatever name they may be called,
apostle or
prophet, whatever, you know, you must understand that you can only marry one spouse at a time.
Hello, welcome to this edition of You and the Law. My name is Jonathan Ochom, your host. You and the Law is simply what it is, you and the law. In this show, we try to demystify the law for the ordinary person, make it simple for a teacher, for a lawyer, for a farmer, for a doctor, for a border rider, for a cleaner, everyone in our society. This program touches on every aspect of our lives that relate to the law. Is it marriage? Is it property? Is it land? Is it traffic? Anything that touches on the law will be discussed in this program. Today, we're going to have an interesting conversation that will focus on the institution of marriage. I know most of us have attended marriage functions. Some of us are married, most of us viewers are married. But what does it mean to be married? How does the law look at marriage? So this conversation today will focus on demystifying the whole topic around marriage and how it is viewed from the eyes of the law. And to help us do this, I have a learned mind with me, and it's none other than my friend, my colleague, Emmanuel Elau. Emma, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Hello, viewers. Thank you for having me on the show.
In House of Talent TV, we welcome our visitors with a fist bump.
Thank you.
We've been told that when you fist bump, you spread the love. So you do this, then you spread the love. Yeah, so Emma, how have you been?
Well, I've been great.
Yeah, we're coming in from 42 days of a lockdown. How has it been on your end?
It's been quite difficult. You know, you wake up in the morning, you sit around the compound, you look at the time. You know, you lose sense of the calendar because you fail to understand which is a Monday and which is a Sunday.
You're even lucky that you have a compound. Some people live in one-bedroom houses and
yes.
have nothing to look except their iron sheets.
Yeah, sure.
And really, you're our first guest really on this program. And why do you think it's sort of important for people to just know about the law? Because I know you've been teaching law and practicing law for all these years. Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you. You know, when it comes to the law, we basically live the law, you know, on a day-to-day basis, you know. Whether it is in your bedroom, there is a law that governs it. If you're married, for example, even if you're single, there could be something touching on the law because you might be in your bedroom with an underage girl or you might be with another person's wife, you know. All the things are the law, you know. When you jump on a border, there is law. When you're driving, we're talking about traffic, you know. If you go to a restaurant, you must ensure that you have the money because you're consuming someone's energy and investment. You know, so you must be able to pay for that. So we interact with the law at all times.
It's part of our everyday life.
Yes. So it's very much important that everyone appreciates the law and understands it at a certain level.
Okay. Yes. So today I know there are many issues, but today we sort of want to narrow our discussion around the institution of marriage.
Yes.
Because, of course, I'm sure most of us, like ourselves, are products of marriage, and probably for most of the population in Uganda are a result of marriage. So I thought I'd sort of start with the foundational issues and then just try to, seek, to pick your mind on what, marriage means, especially, from a legal, from the legal side of things?
Yes. Well, thank you. So if you look at the institution of marriage, we as a country, we are an independent state, right? So that means that we have our own laws within the country that govern different aspects of life.
Yeah.
And that includes marriage, right? And so we have different types of marriages, which are applicable in this country. And each marriage has its own characteristics, which are, which are associated with it.
Yeah,
right?
but perhaps we could just start by the whole concept of marriage, like what it is, like sort of that, paint that picture for the person. I'm sure many people could be saying, but yeah, we know this, but I know the law sort of has its own way of looking at things, yeah.
Yes, so if you look at marriage generally, most people associate marriage with going to church, or going before a chief administrative officer or a registrar of marriages. Now, if you ask a question that what is marriage, marriage primarily is a voluntary union,
voluntary union.
One man and one woman.
Okay.
That is if you're going to church.
Yeah.
In other instances, it can be a voluntary union between one man and maybe 2, 3, or more women.
Okay.
So it only depends on what type of marriage you're comfortable celebrating, because that determines how many partners you can have.
So are you trying to say, when you say a man and woman, it could be just any man and woman? Are there like sort of any guidelines on who the man and who the woman should be in terms of how the relations that exist in society that exist in any community? Is there sort of some qualification of who the man and who the woman should be?
Well, thank you. So if you look at the Constitution of Uganda, which is the supreme law of this country, right? It sets out the age within which one is able to found a family.
Okay.
And so that age is set at 18 years.
Oh.
Right? So anyone above the age of 18 years can celebrate marriage of whatever kind, right? But also importantly, it's between a man and a woman.
Okay.
That's as per the laws in Uganda, right? So if you meet that threshold, then you're good to go.
Okay. And what in terms of the people, like relations that exist within people? Because we hear that in some countries people can marry, cousins or relatives. I don't know what's the situation in Uganda.
Well, it is the same position here. If you look at our penal code, it sets out another marriage laws. It sets out the persons who can marry and those who cannot marry, right? For example, you can't marry your close relatives. If you did, you'd be committing a crime. But of course, we know that in some parts of this country, maybe people could marry close relatives. But generally, the law does not permit you to marry, for example, your brother, your cousin.
Interesting. But I think even these aspects, even culturally, even without the law, I think our culture sort of have certain positions.
Yes.
You can't marry from this. I know that the family where I come from, my grandfather, for example, his closer friends, became part of our family. So I remember my mom has always told me that when they were growing up, they were told, those are not our blood relations, but we don't expect any of you to, to think of marriage because we have, sort of created that tight, bond. So I think even culturally, the position has been sort of clear. So in your sort of introductory remarks, you talked about that there are different, types of, marriages.
Yes.
Because you said some people can marry up to 2, 3, even endless women. Others only require one. Maybe could you just run us through the different, types of marriage that exist in Uganda? Okay.
Well, thank you. Like I said earlier, the most common form of marriage that people celebrate in Uganda is either church marriage, or customary marriage.
Okay.
Now,
you could just take, so what's the customary marriage essentially?
So customary marriage is marriage which is celebrated according to the customs of a given place, most especially of the woman. So if you're marrying a lady, say from Teso or from Buganda, you celebrate that marriage according to the cultures and the customs of the people in that particular area, right? So that is the customary marriage. And of course, the threshold is still the same. The lady and the man should be above 18 years. So
what you're suggesting, because you talked about depending on the culture, so you're suggesting that the people from Teso have their own ways of doing it. People from Buganda, Korea, and other parts of the country it's based on that. They don't have like a uniform guideline?
Exactly. There's no uniform guideline, so it is about the cultures in a given place. So like you've said, in Teso, you'll find that different practices when it comes to marriage. In Buganda, it's different. If you go to Angola, it's different, right? So because the law recognizes customs, to the extent that they are not inconsistent with the constitution, so you find that the law allows people in their different cultural settings to celebrate marriages, those customary marriages, according to their customs.
Okay.
Yeah.
You talked about the fact that there are basic standards that are cut across, even if they're in different cultures. You mentioned age as one of them.
Yes.
What could be sort of the other cultural requirements in Uganda? Because I know there are things around payment of bride price in other areas. I don't know, sort of, could you run us through salient features of of customary law in the context of marriage?
Well, yes, like I've said, so one, the persons who are intending to get married should be above 18 years, right? I've also said it has to happen between a man and a woman, because our cultures and the law do not permit homosexual kind of relationships.
Yeah, same sex.
Yes, to be legalized, okay. Right? And also there is a very important aspect of the payment of the bride price.
Yeah.
If you're coming to marry someone from Teso, you must pay cows.
Yes. Yeah.
If you're coming to Buganda, there have been these jokes people tell that in Buganda you simply walk with some tomatoes, vegetables, and maybe is it called a chisambi? This is the cow.
The thigh.
The thigh of a cow. You
Yes.
move with that. So that's some form of bride price that you give to the family of the bride, right?
Yeah.
Though of course in the past we have had really some contentions when it comes to payment of the bride price.
Yeah.
And these debates have been happening across the country as to whether people should actually be paying bride price, because some people are saying it is discouraging people from getting married.
Well, those are conversations probably for another day.
Yes.
So that's customary. So
Yes.
what could be the other type of marrying?
Well, the other common type of marriage, like I said, was the church marriage.
Yeah.
Now, in church marriage, you have a person who is above 18 years marrying one woman, right? Now, according to the definition, if you look at the legal definition of marriage, as brought from the UK, who were our colonizers anyway, there's a very famous case to lawyers. Many lawyers know this case, the case of Hyde versus Hyde.
Yeah.
They say marriage is one man, one woman, to the exclusion of others.
Yeah.
So that means that if you choose to go today before a priest in a church, a reverend, a pastor, whoever, whatever name they may be called,
apostle or
prophet, whatever, you must understand that you can only marry one spouse at a time.
Oh, and so that's sort of different from the customary position.
It's different.
Yeah.
With customary, for as long as you stay in that lane of customary marriage, you can marry 1, 2, 3, up to infinity. It's about your ability to pay the bride price to the different families you're marrying from, right? But when it comes to church marriage, you're only marrying one person at a time. At a time, I must emphasize, yes. So if you want to move on to the next person, you must first divorce before you...
And then you contract another person.
Yes.
But there's been this conversation around sort of the church you should go to.
Yes.
There seems to be some legal position on how churches getting sort of the necessary approvals or whatever. I don't know if you want to throw more light on that.
Well, so if you choose to celebrate marriage in any given church, you have an obligation to ensure or to do a search to establish that that church is registered for purposes of conducting that marriage. Right? Okay. Because church marriages are conducted under authority of the government.
Yes.
Because ordinarily it's the government that should be conducting these marriages. Right? Yeah. So because government has licensed some churches to do this, you who is intending to get married, you have to ensure that that church is licensed, because otherwise you'll be celebrating no marriage at all.
I think that's a very important point, and we'll go for a break at this point. Viewers, you're watching You and the Law, a program that seeks to demystify the law for you and any other person in the community. We're going for a short break and we'll be right back. COVID-19 came and disorganized our economy, brought our health system to its knees, and along the way, affected our rights significantly. This is You and the Law, the COVID edition here on House of Talent Television. My name is Jonathan Ochom, your host.
When it comes to the law, we basically live the law, you know, on a day-to-day basis, you know. Whether it is in your bedroom, there is a law that governs it. If you're married, for example, even if you're single, there could be something touching on the law, because you might be in your bedroom with an underage girl, or you might be with another person's wife, you know. All the things are the law, you know.
If you're a human being, you have rights. Those rights are called human rights. They are examples: the right to health, the right to freedom from torture, that underscores human dignity, freedom from slavery. You're not supposed to be someone's slave.
If you look at our penal code, it sets out another marriage laws. It sets out the persons who can marry and those who cannot marry, right? For example, you can't marry your close relatives. You know, if you did, you'd be committing a crime.
The state is not supposed to tell you who to worship, how many times in a day. No, you have a right to work. Your right to work, you have freedom of association.
Cohabitation for whatever period of time does not make you husband and wife, right? And that is why we emphasize to people that when the relationship is still hot, you know, you must ensure that you do what? Marry.
Yes.
You know?
For human rights to be respected, protected, and fulfilled, relevant government programs must actually work. Medicine should reach hospitals, oxygen should be there, health workers should have gloves, teachers should be present. Now they are mostly absent, and they have left the profession, a good number of them. They are into trading. So things must work. If things don't work, human rights are not respected, are not protected, and are not fulfilled.
COVID-19 has tested our hope and faith as individuals, families, and the country at large. Besides destroying many aspects of our lives, the novel coronavirus has also affected our human rights in many ways. You and the Law, the COVID edition, is a 30-minute weekly television program that focuses on the impact of COVID-19 on human rights in Uganda. The program engages experts to explain the importance of rights-based approaches to the success of any public health response to ensure the respect, protection, and fulfillment of human rights amidst the challenges presented by COVID-19. You and the Law, the television program, brought to you by Legal Hub Uganda, taking the law to the last mile in proud association with I4C Africa Hub and House of Talent Television.
Welcome back to this edition of You and the Law. My name is Jonathan Ochom, and today in studio with me is Mr. Emmanuel Elau, an advocate with the Elau and Ochom Advocate, and also a co-founder of Legal Hub Uganda, one of the leading innovative organizations that are doing a lot of work around enhancing access to justice in Uganda through legal empowerment, through innovations, and a host of other things. Emma, before we went for the break, we're still having conversation around church marriage, as it was. I've heard of cases where people, you know, have celebrated marriage at 8 p.m.
Yes.
They said, oh, the bride delayed to come, or there was something that stopped the function from starting early, or there were many other weddings booked for the day.
Yes.
And yet, I believe there should be some guidance from the law around celebration of these marriages. I don't know if you may want to sort of advise us on in that area of time.
Well, thank you. For as long as you come to celebrate a marriage in church, you know, you must know that this marriage can only be celebrated between 8 a.m. in the morning and 6 p.m. I think 5 to 6 p.m. in the evening, right? So you can't have a marriage celebrated past that time because that is the position of the law, right? Unless you have some special license, you know, which I'm not aware of. So you have to ensure that you celebrate the marriage between 8 p.m. and 6 p.m.
So what would happen if I went up to, 6:15, 6:30 there, or 7, here they talk about African time. What would be the implication really of, a function that commences maybe a few minutes past 6 p.m.? What would be the...
Well, that celebration is happening outside what? Outside the law. Now, if all the parties involved probably keep quiet about it, right? Maybe you can escape legal sanctions. But if someone else raises complaints, then the legality of the whole celebration might be brought into what? Into issue, And you do not want to have, instead of having your honeymoon, you're still worried about the
whether
time.
you actually got married or not.
Yes. So I mean, you have to ensure that you really do it on time.
Viewers, I hope you're picking this up, that, ensure that by 5:30, 5:45, you're done, just to be sure that you don't spill over to, any minute past 6, because that would, raise a number of issues, could affect the validity of your marriage. And then there's been a controversial issue, Emma, that has been reported in the media around registration of these marriages.
Yes.
There was a time the newspapers were awash with the story that most of the most marriages had not been, filed. They had not been submitted to the government.
Yes.
Could you sort of run us through the, those requirements? After the wedding, does it just end there? And who's responsible for what? The moment you celebrated, said our vows, been issued the certificate, does it just end at that, or there are sort of some protocols that follow after that?
Well, thank you. So what happens is, once you have celebrated marriage, if it is customary marriage, for example, you, the parties who have gotten married, have the obligation to go to URSB, which is the Uganda Registration Services Bureau, to register that marriage. If you do not do so, then there could be sanctions. You could be penalized. You could be fined, And of course, I'm aware many people actually don't register these marriages.
The customary marriages.
The customary marriages.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to the church marriage, the church, first of all, is licensed by government to conduct those marriages.
Okay.
So each marriage that they conduct, they have to ensure that they account, by registering the same.
That this year we did 100 marriages. This is the record.
Yes, so they should have some sort of returns, to the government to show that they have celebrated such and such number of marriages and these are the people, So in most cases you find that if you have celebrated a marriage from a church which is not recognized or not licensed, they never actually go and register these marriages because in the first place they don't have the authority to do this. So that's why they end up hiding behind, until one time maybe one of the parties dies, then the issue of the marriage existing comes up.
Or one of the parties wants to opt out of the marriage.
Exactly. So they come up and say that this marriage, so you need to ensure that the church is correct and is doing its things the right way.
Yeah. So Emma, you in your discussion you made reference to the office of the chief administrative officer and their role in marriage. I'm imagining you're trying to tell us about another type of marriage. Could you sort of?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now we have what we call civil marriage.
Okay.
Which is not very popular, though of late I think it might gain some traction with the young people.
Yeah.
Now, under civil marriage, this marriage is very similar to church marriage, except that church marriage is celebrated in a church, or other licensed place, while a civil marriage is celebrated before a register of marriages, or before a chief administrative officer at a district level.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the requirements are still the same. You must be above 18 years, right? It's between a man and a woman, and it is also between one man and one woman, right? So just like church marriage.
So I can't match to cow with 2 women.
No, you can't. It has to be only one woman at a time. Emphasis at a time, because it's possible that someone can actually divorce and they marry another person.
Okay. Yes. And sort of what could be the procedures around this? Like, do I just walk to Cow's office and my girlfriend, my fiancé, we are ready to get married? Are there some sort of protocols that I need to follow?
No, you have to satisfy the given requirements. Say you are a resident of Wakiso, it will be expected that you'll produce a statutory declaration, a legal document, to show maybe that you're a resident of such and such a place, you're intending to get married to so and so, you are above 18 years. All those facts have to be clearly brought out. There has to be a notice which is put up, for a period of 21 days. So that notice is intended to ensure that the public gets to know that person X wants to marry person Y.
Why is that notice important?
It's important because some people might want to sneak into a marriage with a different person, yet they have other partners. Because, like I said, it is one woman and one man.
I think we've heard of those incidents, and I think that's another important, part to pause a little bit, go for a break, grab a cup of coffee, take some water, and we'll get back to discussing further with Mr. Emmanuel Elau in this edition of You and the Law, proudly brought to by House of Talent TV and Digo Hub Uganda. Let's go for a break. Welcome back to You and the Law here on House of Talent Television. My name is Jonathan Ochom, your host, and today we are privileged to have Emmanuel Elau, an advocate and a law lecturer, take us through a very important discussion around marriage. We're exploring the various types of marriages in Uganda, what makes a marriage valid, the requirements for marriage, among other things. Emma, we sort of went on a break at the point when we were discussing the civil marriages, and you talked about the fact that they have the same requirements as other marriages, only that this time they take place at the office of the Chief Administrative Officer, what we normally know as CAO, and then or at the marriage registry here at the Uganda Registration Services Bureau. So I'm sure that the we've talked about the civil marriage, talked about customary, we've talked about the Christian marriages or the church marriages. So what happens to some viewers who may not subscribe to the Christian faith? What options do they have? So for example, our Muslim brothers and sisters,
Yes.
How are they catered for in the context of marriage?
Okay, well, thank you. So when look at this from the aspect of religion, for example, customary marriage cuts across whether you're Muslim and a Muslim or whatever you may choose to marry customarily. But also, if you're strictly a Muslim and you want to celebrate according to your religious beliefs, then you're catered for as well under the law, because we have what we call Islamic marriages. Okay. Right? So Islamic marriages, just like it sounds, it is celebrated by Muslims, people who subscribe to the Islamic religion, and therefore the Islamic laws with respect to marriage. And of course, we've had people, we've had a bit of a debate sometimes around Islamic marriage, especially with respect to the number of wives that someone can marry.
Yes. Yeah.
So in Islam, you can marry as many as 4 wives.
Oh, that's the ceiling.
That's the ceiling.
Okay. I don't know if there's a scientific justification for, sealing it at 4. Well,
those are matters of religion.
Yes.
but legally, they could marry up to
4.
Up to 4 wives.
Also, they can opt for one if it's all.
Well, you could, yeah.
Okay.
Some Muslims nowadays only marry one woman. Or they could stop at 2. It's really a matter of question.
It's not a mandatory.
It's not mandatory.
Okay.
Yeah. So you could choose to go to the maximum or stay at 1. So if you want to marry any other beyond that, you would have to divorce one of the 4 to create space.
To create space.
Yes.
The same way we block people on Facebook and
yes.
To create space for a new follower.
Yes, exactly. So the other requirements also fall into play. For example, it has to be between a man and a woman, which man and woman, or women, which man or woman should as well be above 18 years. Because we follow the supreme law.
Which is the constitution.
Which is the constitution.
Because I think under Islamic law, I think 16 is permissible? I was reading something along those lines.
There could be those debates. Even culturally,
Yeah.
you've heard of these things in the rural areas. Even today, some people are marrying off girls as early as 13 years or even 12 or 14.
Yeah.
You know, so the constitution set those minimums
Okay.
that everyone must subscribe to or must follow. You know, regardless of your religious inclinations. Yeah. So that's the Islamic marriage that Muslims can celebrate.
Okay. There's this conversation, when you talk about customary marriage, you made reference to dowry, but you've talked about civil marriage, you've talked about church or Christian marriage, and you haven't sort of made any reference to bride price. Are you suggesting that for a church marriage to happen, there's no need for bride price, or for a civil marriage to happen, for example, there's no need for bride price?
Well, thank you. Now, you know, the question you're asking brings us to the wider debate about bride price, generally, you know. So if you're going to marry in church as well, doesn't mean that you're not supposed to pay what? Bride price. You get. In fact, in this country, personally, I believe that sometimes it's a wastage of resources in a way. Because if you get married customarily, you know, oftentimes before you go and marry in church, these people have already celebrated customary marriage.
Yes.
As a requirement of sorts.
Of culture.
Yes, of culture. But is it necessary to have the two functions? You know, that's a debatable question, because
you may want to lock the man so that he doesn't
run around,
bring in 2 or 3 or 4.
Yeah. So if you have your things set out very clearly, you could actually simply agree on the bride price. You pay the bride price, and then you go and celebrate the marriage in what? In the church. You know. But in our situation, people are very generous. They celebrate a customary marriage. Customary marriage is marriage for all intents and purposes.
On its own. It doesn't need to be validated by
going to
form
church,
of marriage.
or, you know.
Because I hear people saying that, you know, we marry traditionally, now we're legalizing it in church. Is that a correct position?
No, it's not a correct position. Customary marriage is legal in its own way.
In its own right.
In its
it
own
doesn't
right.
have to be supported by another form of marriage.
Exactly. You know? But because oftentimes people want to ensure that the man does not go on marrying other wives. Because
or for faith reasons.
Or maybe for spiritual reasons,
Yeah.
faith or whatever, someone then can choose to go to church.
Okay.
So going to church is, we could say,
so basically we marry twice.
we marry twice. Which for me I think is a wastage of resources. You know, because you spend a lot of money introducing and then again go to church.
That could be a very unpopular view, especially
most likely
among our sisters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And parents also.
Yes. But now if you apply the same to the civil marriages as well, civil marriages as well, somehow because of our settings as a country and the customary laws and all that, people still celebrate customary marriage, then they go on to celebrate a civil marriage, which is also still a wastage of what? Of resources. Unless you want to ensure that the man doesn't marry more than one.
So basically, Emma, what you're suggesting, that it's possible for a man and a woman to go to church or to go to a marriage registry and get married without actually having paid bride price from a legal angle.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, there was a case, you know, which discussed the issue of bride price. So it's no longer mandatory, right? So this question is now left to the parents of the bride. You get? If the parents of the bride are saying that for us, we have brought up our daughter and we are giving her to you as a matter of love, then you can celebrate a marriage without necessarily having to do a customary marriage.
Or you can just do a customary marriage
and leave it at that.
Leave it at that.
Yes.
Or you can choose to go to church and do it just
exactly.
like that.
Yes. So that could happen. As long as the parents have given their blessings, you know, anything can happen. In fact, with a civil marriage, it's even much, much easier. You know, with the civil marriage, you simply need to walk to the registry. Husband and wife and their two witnesses.
Potential husband and wife.
Yes.
Or rather,
exactly. So you go with your two witnesses. So you could fit in one car and go and celebrate what? A marriage.
So you can save all this convoy.
Exactly.
Blah, blah, blah.
You know.
Okay. Interesting.
But of course today, because of the COVID situation and the limitations on the numbers, is it 20 for marriage? You find that now people are getting to understand that it's actually possible to have a marriage in church with a lesser number of people,
Yeah.
10 people.
Yeah.
And you all fit in one taxi, you go have lunch.
And the law recognizes this marriage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not a question of the big function, a big 10, 200 people, no.
That is just a bonus.
That is a bonus.
Social, not legal at all.
Yeah, it's really.
So we've talked about, our customary position, church, about civil, about the Islamic. But I know that sort of in Uganda we have other people who don't necessarily profess any of these, faiths. And so, for example, we have a huge community, Asian community in the country. And I don't know sort of how they are covered. Let's assume I'm Hindu or whatever, any other faith. What options exist for me?
Well, yeah, I think you brought that's a good question. Now, if you consider the Hindus, because they have been here for quite a while,
Yeah.
the law also recognizes the Hindu marriages.
Okay.
You get?
So basically, people who have come from out of the country and have settled here.
Yes, from the Indian community,
Sort of origin,
mostly,
yeah.
yes. So they're recognized, and they also do celebrate that marriage under the Hindu marriage laws, which are also recognized in this country.
Okay.
But of course, this is not a bit popular. I think not many people know about it.
Perhaps there are few.
Yeah, because I think it's mostly done internally by that community. So many of us are not really so much exposed to it, but the law recognizes their marriages as well.
Okay.
For as long as they also meet the same threshold, that the person is above 18 years, it's between a man and a woman, and things like that, so they could as well celebrate.
There's another sort of question along those areas of faith. So, for example, what happens if the husband or the man is Muslim, the woman is Christian, or one like they're different faiths, and they want to, celebrate? What's sort of the legal requirement around this? So, for example, if the husband is Catholic and the woman is born again or Anglican, and then sort of they are going to, how would they choose? What does the law say around that issue of multi-faith sort of marriages? What would they do? Is it a must that all of us should be, of this faith in order to celebrate marriage under that arrangement? Or there's must both of us be Muslims, for example, for us to celebrate an Islamic marriage, or must both of us be Christians for us to celebrate a church marriage? Sort of what's the legal guidance in that area?
Well, thank you. So you find that those scenarios have actually arisen so much. So you find that the nitty-gritties are left to the church leadership in the different faith or in the different sects that we have in the country. Yeah. So you find that I think up to some point the Catholic Church was rigid, on that aspect, that both of you had to be Catholics to celebrate that marriage.
I think you'd have to go through baptism and all the...
Yes, confirmation and all that process to first become a Catholic in order to...
celebrate.
But the positions have since changed, right?
But those are not legal positions.
They're not legal positions. It's just the church's own guidelines internally, because, issues to do with faith. You can't so much go into them. But, so yeah, that's the position. So that position has since then relaxed.
But under the law, is it okay if only one person professes a particular faith?
It's okay.
So it doesn't matter that both of you should be...
Yeah.
Okay.
As long as the church or the sect you belong to doesn't block, because sometimes they could seek for whatever reasons too.
And now the last question for today is this whole discussion around cohabitation, because some people have lived together for many years and then concluded conveniently that this is my wife. You find them introducing to their friends that this is my husband, and yet they have not celebrated any of this. Could you sort of just clear the air on that? Does cohabiting sort of in some way amount to a certain form of marriage?
Well, that's a very important question as well. Now, cohabitation can never qualify as a marriage for all intents and purposes.
Regardless of how many years?
Regardless. You can have grandchildren, but still your girlfriend or boyfriend too. Somebody.
Old friend and oldie.
Could be old friend, So cohabitation for whatever period of time does not make you husband and wife, right? And that is why we emphasize to people that when the relationship is still hot, you know, you must ensure that you do what? Marry.
Yes.
You know, because it doesn't matter. There are instances, you know, where people have lived, and of course society feels bad about it, you know. Maybe some people have lived for 20 years or 30 and have gathered a lot of property together, and then when suddenly one of them dies and the other wants to obtain letters of administration to administer that estate, they will be bounced.
You're like, we don't know you.
We don't know you. The family comes up and says, you have never celebrated any marriage, we don't know you, you are an imposter, you know.
Wow.
That's why we say, for men, if you want to protect this woman you've lived with for very long.
Or even for women, if you want to protect your man.
Or even, yes, it could be either way.
Yeah.
Ensure that you take them to whichever forms of marriage that we have discussed and legalize it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel Elau, for joining us for this edition of You and the Law. Viewers, we've come to the end of the show. I hope you've picked something and understood really what the law says about marriage, because, man, you don't want to be in trouble after, you know, many years of working hard only to realize that you have no rights at all, simply because you didn't celebrate any of the marriages that are recognized within the laws of Uganda. With that, we come to the end of this edition of You and the Law. It's a bye from us. See you next time.
COVID-19 has tested our hope and faith as individuals, families, and the country at large. Besides destroying many aspects of our lives, the novel coronavirus has also affected our human rights in many ways. You and the Law, the COVID edition, is a 30-minute weekly television program that focuses on the impact of COVID-19 on human rights in Uganda. The program engages experts to explain the importance of rights-based approaches to the success of any public health response to ensure the respect, protection, and fulfillment of human rights amidst the challenges presented by COVID-19. You and the Law, the television program, brought to you by Legal Hub Uganda, taking the law to the last mile in proud association with I4C Africa Hub and House of Talent Television.